Evening. My name is Asma and I'm from Kenya. And my question is to you, Douglas. So you talked about us serving justice. And do you think it's judicious for these people in Britain, for example, you talked about how Britain is giving aid to these countries in Africa. It's judicious for them to give this much money to these countries, but without even listening to their needs. So this only contributes to the white savior complex that is currently a big issue in
this
Africa.
whole notion of charity as opposed to policy.
Well, there is a saying we have, damned if you do and damned if you don't. If it's the case that if we don't give aid, we'd be accused of not giving aid, and if we do give aid, it's a white savior complex. I mean, we can all give aid better, for sure, and I just gave, in my opening remarks, what I think was a serious suggestion for one very good use of aid, which is to prioritize it in the region and in the neighboring countries of places people are fleeing from. But I mean, as I say, I would refuse as well to see the multifarious problems that exist in your own home country and sadly across the continent of Africa. I refuse to say that that's, because of foreign aid only. It's so many things have gone wrong there, and you know that better than I do.
Nelufar, let's go to you, please, for your thoughts on what's going on online, the questions that are coming through.
And there you have it again. The young lady from Kenya comes up, asks her question to Douglas Murray and says, Douglas, all this aid that you say that Britain is giving, it's not what the people really need. It's what the Britons are basically forcing on Kenya and the other African countries. So wouldn't you just say that's a white savior complex? I mean, and Douglas comes up with an absolute brilliant response. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. That is so true, folks, and that is exactly what happens to conservatives. If we go in one direction, we get hit by the people saying, oh, you're bigoted, you're racist, you're homophobic, Islamophobic, insurrectionist, all that stuff. If you go in the other direction, we get hit with, oh, you're a bigot, you're a homophobe, you're a racist, you're an insurrectionist, you're an Islamophobe, you're this phobe, you're that phobe. It doesn't freaking matter what conservatives do or what Republicans do. You're going to be smacked both times. The double whammy. That's going to happen. That's what happens if you're a conservative. It's not correct. It's not true. But that's what the media boxes it into. And then everybody else sort of chimes along with it. Just like this young lady asking the question. You know what? Oh, so you don't want our aid? Is that what you're basically saying? And the aid, and the reason and all the problems are in Africa are because of the British aid. Has nothing to do with the warlords, has nothing to do with the people that are ruling the countries, whether they're kings or princes or whatever, has nothing to do with the internal actions or the ramifications of policies that are put forth by those rulers or dictators in the African countries or other countries where aid is flowing into. Oh no, it's none of their fault. It's the fault of the good people of the West that are giving their hard-earned dough, hard-earned money to these impoverished and poor nations. It's our fault. Wow, wow, wow. Anyways, folks, we got a lot more with that video clip. You're watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. We welcome you all, one and all here. I'm your host, Dr. Nasir, and what's on tap for today? Where you saw a little bit of it. Let's get to the rest of the clip and our reaction to it, because that's what I do here, folks. I give you my political prescriptions to my political perspective. It's my punditry. Let's get to that clip right now.
Your thoughts as we wrap up. I know there's a lot of people waiting to ask questions. I'm afraid that we are slowly running out of time. Let's start with you, Sanam. Your thoughts. How do you pull this discussion together?
First of all, I think we found.
Yes, that moderator is so great. Yes. How do you, Sanam? How do you go ahead and pull this discussion together? Weave the threads, Sanam. Weave them nice and tight so we get a nice, tight, essence to this whole argument.
Found more common ground than we expected, in the sense that I agree with the security concerns are real, whether they're perceived or not, but we have to be able to understand that in each context they come from different sources, and by and large it's not about the refugees, it's about other things that are going on in society.
No, by and large, it is about the refugees and what's happening. How quickly are they assimilating into society? What is it that they want? Do they want to assimilate? Or do they want to not assimilate? Basically, those are the two questions. The refugees that are coming, are they interested in becoming part of the melting pot to the greater good of the nation that they're coming to? Or are they trying to stay away from that nation and basically say, no, we're going to want to make it our own?
On the the savior complex, again, just as a British citizen, I'm going to put this: $4.7 billion plus 860 million pounds of weapons sales for Yemen, versus 200 million pounds just now of pledged aid. Let's not pretend that the aid that we give anywhere mirrors or matches the weapons and the other resources that we get.
Moving it forward
and just one
to the
last
solutions.
point.
Something
we
constructive that we
call
can
brown people migrants. We call white people who go abroad to work expats. This is really important. Right?
We call brown people migrants, and we call people that go to expats. So let me ask you a question. If there's a brown person who's British born, or born in a Western country, or a black person who's coming from, let's say, Africa, the African continent, or a black person from some other place, but is born in Britain or born in the West, and they decide to go back, how come we're not calling them migrants? So calling it expats. The undertone to me of this question is basically immigrant. Calling somebody a migrant is akin to being a little racist, a little bigoted, it's something else. But an expat, oh, that sounds so much better than a migrant. What difference does it matter? Migrant, it just all it means, migrant I don't think it has any connotation whatsoever. Although we now know, because how many millions and millions upon millions of migrants are moving across the globe? How many expats are moving across the globe? Are they in the millions? Of course they're not. Of course they're not. So the terminology migrant really gives you that, as soon as you hear the word migrant, you know exactly what you're talking about. It gives you that picture, which is true. Nothing to do with race, nothing to do with xenophobia, nothing to do with bigoted, nothing to do with being racist. It's just a descriptive term. She wants to turn it into something else.
Right. So there is a lot of movement and a lot of money being made by people going abroad and bringing it back.
But the language that we use, whether this should even be called a global refugee crisis, given the fact that refugees have been flowing in and out of the developing world within their own region for decades. No one ever bothered calling this a refugee crisis unless it started affecting, and until it started affecting Europe. And I'm not looking at you specifically, Douglas. I'm just sort of...
Oh, there's her little backhand. Says, I'm not looking at you, Douglas. No, the whole freaking debate, she's been going after Douglas. She doesn't let him speak. She keeps interrupting. She is bringing in her own set of facts, which are not absolutely true, like that stupid-ass study that she cited. She can't even cite it. She just said, oh, yeah, there's nothing that shows that, migrants and immigrants, there's no study that shows that the incarceration rate or the violence rate, or that crimes are being perpetrated greater by immigrants or whatever. I mean, that's just not borne out by any of the statistics, unless you decide to look at the ones that are being, swept under the rug by these countries. Germany, for example, Sweden, for example. They know what's going on, but they don't have the balls to say it because they don't want to be... You called our nation racist. You called our nation bigots. We don't want to be called bigots or racists. We don't want to be doing that. We're just going to, shove everything under the rug. Oh, somebody committed a crime? We have no idea. We don't know if it was a man or woman. We don't even know if it was really done. Somebody just reported it, but we don't even know if that's a true report or not. This lady is just absolutely unbelievable.
Stating a fact. 30 seconds for each, please, if we can have your final thoughts. Muzun.
So I would just love to say that each individual can do something. You know, sometimes we think we need somebody else to come and help us, or maybe we are waiting governments to make a change for us. But I think every one of you and those who are watching and anyone in the world can participate, because big impact starts with the small actions. And that what happened with me as an individual who was living in refugee camps, and just I had my voice and I used my voice to change the world. And that's because I am Muzun now who didn't give up. And once we believe in ourselves and believe that we can make a change, we can make it. Let's make this a change in helping those people who are in need to us, because they are living in difficult times and they need your help. And your help can give them hope and the future.
Thank you very much. Douglas Murray, we've been saying that governments have failed, policies have failed. On an individual level, what can we do? What will you do differently thinking about this issue?
Firstly, by the way, migrants versus expats, there's a very clear reason. It's expected, rightly or wrongly, that expats don't stay in the country and bring up their families and stay for generations. The assumption with migrants is, currently has been in recent generations, that they are going to stay and that it's going to be a multi-generational thing. That's the assumption. But it's an interesting and important thing. Very quickly, just on the integration.
Excellent, excellent, excellent point made by Douglas here. I was, in my previous soliloquy, I was basically talking about the difference between using the terminology migrant expats. Douglas points out that is one thing that's true. Most migrants are not going to go back. That's not the intent and purpose. When they decide to vote with their feet and decide to take the move for whatever reasons, financial, safety, security, whatever the reasons are, and they go to another country, they may have in the back of their minds a little bit, we'll probably go back when things get better. But that's usually not what happens. And in many, many cases, they are leaving their countries that they're in, and they don't want to go back because for the reasons that they're leaving, and they want to go back and start a new life. And hopefully they're thinking that if they move to somewhere in the Western democracies, the Western democratic societies, that will be much better for their children than staying in the place that they are. So Douglas makes an excellent point, again, in terms of differentiating between expats and migrants.
Thing. I repeat, I think we've got to be very, very careful that we don't end up lambasting the freest and most generous countries.
Absolutely.
And I would just urge, as a call to, as it were, moral caution on this, urge you in this room and people watching, how many people have you made citizens of Qatar from Syria? How many? Okay.
Oh, talk about a feather slap to the people there. Is that what he's saying? In the country of Qatar, how many Syrians have you taken in? Zero. And that's another thing. These Muslim countries, why aren't they taking in? Some of them are, but not to the extent that the West is, not to the extent the United States is, not to the extent that Britain is, or France, or Spain, or Italy, or any of the other Western democracies, or Australia. You name the Western democracies. The Nordic countries, the Baltic countries. Come on now. Doug makes another excellent, excellent point, and literally is putting into the minds of the people in the audience, hey, don't bite the hand that feeds you. The West does plenty. Let's see you guys pull your weight.
It's something worth thinking about, isn't it?
All right. Mark, your thoughts.
I'm sitting with I'm still sitting with Douglas's initial distinction between justice and mercy, which I think is very helpful. And I wish we'd had more time to unpack that, not in Aristotelian mode, maybe in Socratic mode, where we could unpack the very meaning of these terms, what justice means. Because for me, yeah, we'd all agree that education is great and education provides hope. I agree with you 1,000%. I think you might disagree on what government should pay for that, or what role the government should play for a migrant. You and I may disagree on that.
We'll do that another time.
That's my point. You and I you would say that we have to have justice and mercy. I think we would all agree, but we would disagree on what justice looks like. Because for me, if you are the freest and most
Here it comes. Here it comes, folks. This is coming from a liberal, a leftist, a progressive, a socialist, and a Marxist. What's the difference? My meaning of justice and mercy, completely different. Let's hear it. Okay, Mark, let's get the verbal diarrhea going.
Well-resourced nation, but you have done that by destabilizing the Middle East and underdeveloping Africa and exploiting the
there you go.
South. Then you
Come
have
on.
a role to play in providing support and safety and freedom and self-determination for those countries that have been exploited. And for me, that's not an act of mercy. That's an act of justice.
Could be, could be.
Well, thank you both very much. I think for you both, it seems to boil down to a core belief that states have rights and obligations toward their own citizens, whereas you, I think, believe more than anything else that humans have rights that should prevail over the rights of states, and that we should all talk about what pushes refugees to the situation that makes them become refugees, as we say. So for now, thank you all very much for a fantastic and fascinating discussion, which will no doubt continue. Mark Lamont Hill, Douglas Murray, Muzoon Al-Melihan, and Sanam Naragi Andalini, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
So a quick wrap up on the debates. It was nice hearing, again, Douglas Murray. He does his thing, gives his points concisely, succinctly, takes a barrage from the crowd, from the questioners. I mean, he is obviously the, I guess, main attraction in these debates. Mark Lamont Hill, we know where he stands to. The other two ladies there, they chimed in, but obviously everybody wants to hear what Douglas Murray says. He had some very nice points, as he always does. He was battling with the moderator pretty much throughout, every time. She wouldn't let him speak, interrupted, made her own comments, made her own distinctions, made her own facts, those kind of things. Douglas was fighting back. It was back and forth. All in all, I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful debate, a wonderful discussion. We appreciate you taking the time to watch. Check out all of the different videos that we have. You see their links above and below and on our page. If you haven't done so, subscribe to our channel. I'm Dr. Nasir, host of the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. If you haven't done so already, as I said before, like, share, and follow us. You know what to do. Check out our links above and below. Leave you with my final thought, which has always been, when you're right, you're right, and when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.